Hey guys, it's Mitch Maley and I'm back with another edition of Punk Rock Politics. As senators finished grilling uber-conservative Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett this week, much of America remains focused on her hyper-conservative religious views and the possibility that she would be open to overturning Roe v. Wade. However, the real issue at stake in Barrett's nomination isn't abortion. It's the rise of what's been called the corporate court. Yes, Barrett is a member of People of Praise, a so-called Catholic charisma group based out of South Bend, Indiana. A sort of Catholicism with a dash of Pentecostal silliness thrown in. Some opponents to Barrett's confirmation have called the notoriously secretive group a cult. But no one should rush to judgment when it comes to such a pejorative classification. Yes, they're said to embrace practices like shared living, faith healing, and speaking in tongues. And yes, they instruct wives to verbalize their commitment to being submissive to their husbands. And yes, although neither Barrett nor the group would confirm her membership, a 2010 People of Praise directory obtained by the Washington Post does list her as one of the group's handmaids. And yes, Margaret Atwood did tweet recently that her 1985 dystopia novel, The Handmaid's Tale, was based on a different but similar group. But okay, it's probably a cult, but stay with me, people. If Republicans actually overturned Roe v. Wade, once again rendering abortion, like so many other basic medical procedures, a luxury of the rich, they wouldn't have an issue to use to coax the evangelical vote to turn out for a Philistine like Trump. They're perfectly content to let state legislatures continue to attempt a death by 1,000 paper cuts approach. Dangling that overturn carrot, however, is always a great way to juice turnout and, more importantly, raise campaign cash. And it's no different across the aisle, where Democrats are forever warning that if you don't pull the lever for whichever warmed-over, neoliberal, Wall Street-endorsed corporatist warmonger they've put at the top of their ticket, Roe will be overturned, a strategy that helps their side to raise money. And it keeps everyone's eyes off the real ball. Let's just look at one Supreme Court term that ended in the spring of 2017 when the court sided with big corporations in 14 of 19 cases. The Supreme Court ruled that debt collection companies aren't engaging in a false, deceptive, or unfair practice when they file unenforceable claims against a person in bankruptcy, specifically to get people to pay them money when they're not legally obligated to. In another case, the court limited the ability of states to protect residents of a nursing home from being forced into arbitration. It put up new roadblocks for people filing class action lawsuits, and it actually restricted the ability of the Securities and Exchange Commission to force people convicted of securities fraud to pay back the money they stole. The next year, in the landmark case of Janus versus the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, the Roberts Court dealt a near-death blow to public sector unions. In fact, jurisprudence studies have shown the Roberts Court to be the most business-friendly in nearly a century. And while the court is often described in a 5-4 or now potentially 6-3 conservative liberal spread, the reality is that when it comes to corporate power, the liberal opposition largely doesn't exist. Stephen Breyer wrote the court's opinion in the debt collection case. Elena Kagan wrote it for the one on arbitration, and Sonia Sotomayor wrote the opinion in the securities fraud case. Why is the mainstream media not focused on this aspect of Barrett's confirmation or the court in general, you might ask? That's simple. They're owned by large corporations who have a vested interest in the court's expansion of corporate power at the expense of everyday citizens. And with every pro-corporate judge that's appointed to a federal bench or the Supreme Court, it makes it even more unlikely that Citizens United, the landmark decision that essentially ruled that corporations were people protected by the First Amendment and could therefore spend as much money as they see fit on dark money PACs meant to sway elections, will be overturned, all but guaranteeing that corporations will be able to continue getting pro-corporate interest politicians elected who will appoint pro-corporate judges who will uphold pro-corporate laws. A woman's right to control her body should absolutely be hers alone, and there's no excuse for the way President Trump and Republicans in the Senate are defying the will of the American people and showing their own hypocrisy in trying to ram through the appointment of a Supreme Court justice whose views seem to be grossly out of step with the society over which she would rule. But politicians are great at keeping voters fighting over never-ending, divisive cultural issues in front of the Capitol while their paymasters at the top of the pyramid shovel money out the back door. So if you think the current fight to appoint a justice is about you, the everyday American, you're wrong no matter what side you're on. It's about the power structure at the very top and making sure that there's only a veil of democracy shrouding the corporate plutocracy that our government has become. That's all for today. I'm Mitch Maley, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Punk Rock Politics. And don't forget to go to punkrockpolitics.com, where we've got a brand new feature about President Trump's post-COVID campaign pivot and whether it can lead him to a comeback victory. Thanks, guys.